Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for everyone for being here today, Workshop Wednesday. And I was out last week, so I missed that one. I haven't had a chance to review that. So if there's overlapping stuff, the team will fill me in as we go. We do have a few questions here in the Q&A, so we'll go ahead and get started there. And yeah, just keep posting them in the Q&A and we'll get through those as many as we can. We got a pretty small group today compared to normal. So I don't know if people are joining us late or if today will just be small, but you have a lot of leeway to get all your questions answered this time. So if you have quite a few things to get taken care of, today's the day to do it. Okay. Is there a way to add a task for certain agents that are on teams and need a reminder sent to the co-op agent to close under that MLS ID? Sure. Yeah. So it's a good one. Now, one of the things you'll probably have to do, there may be a couple ways to do this, but in my case, the way that I handle it is I have a field called agent. I have a field for what team they're on. I have a field for what brokerage they're in. That's filled out at the beginning of every transaction. So, and that gives me the leeway now to conditionally send things based on if it's a certain agent versus another agent. So if John Smith is the agent, then, we're 3 days before closing or something like that, or 1 day before closing, then this email will get sent out. So you can do it that way. I think that's probably the easiest way, is just adding that one field for agent and then having a pull down. So you would have this on the TC approval side, not on the agent side. They don't need to fill out their own name every time. They could if you wanted them to, but the problem with that is I like a choice field. And if you have a choice field, then they drop that down and see all the other agents you're working with. So I prefer to have it on the TC side, where the TC sets it before it becomes a transaction. And then that agent is set. And now you can even have additional paragraphs and things come in emails. Not that I would advise telling your agents this, because it creates just a cluster of smart blocks and things that you need to do and extra work that probably isn't necessary. They think is necessary, but really isn't necessary for the customer support issues. So, but what you can do is say, if John Smith is the agent, add this extra paragraph at the end of the this email, or send this additional email, or send this additional text message at this time. So there's a lot of things you can do once you get into it if you have that extra field. If you have any follow-ups, go ahead and pop them in there. Are there automations in OTC that are tied to fields so that if something is added, a task template or otherwise can be added out? Yeah, for sure. So this is on our scale plan. This is our highest plan. What Tiffany's asking is like, can we fill out a field and have that trigger things? And yeah, that's how I have my whole system built. So if you come over here to triggers, you no longer need tasks at a certain point. You may have, 5 to 8 tasks of just kind of things to remember, one-off things that come up. But for the most part, everything's going to be in your trigger menu. And what you're going to do is take each task and say, okay, my first task is, oops, sorry, didn't mean to hit my keyboard like that. The first task is send opening emails. Well, instead of having one task with a bunch of emails in that task and checking it off, going to the health bar and then deleting out the ones you don't need and sending the ones you do need, what you can do is have a separate trigger for each email, right? So this one's going to the buyer. This one's going to the buyer's agent. This one's going to the escrow officer. This one's going to the lender, whatever. They all come in as separate emails, but they only come in if those things are true. So now you're not deleting anything. If there's financing on the deal, bring in my opening email for a lender. If there's, if I represent the buyer, bring in the buyer and the buyer agent email and text. So these emails can come in here and replace all of your tasks. The other thing you can do, which was the original question, is you can put a condition in here and you say, let me just add one, just come down here and you select any property field. So if you're looking for a property field, maybe it's a choice field that you're looking for and a certain choice that they're making, you can say, if the contract status is equal to peanut butter, then I want to, sorry, I had to turn off my watch. It was giving me a bunch of notifications. So then you can come down here and close this. And let's just delete this if buyer. So if contract status equals peanut butter, now this would be a template instead of an email. That would be one of your choices. So up here, when you're adding your trigger, you can say, Do I want to send a message? Do I want to send an email, a text message, a template, add or remove a template, add or remove a field section, add or remove a field? So you have a lot of functionality here. And this is honestly, if you guys can get into this and wrap your head around it and start taking your tasks and turning them into triggers, the system is now telling you when to do things instead of you having to go to a task list every single day for all 100 under contract that you have and look through every task list to see what's going on or go to the task pipeline. Now you're literally waiting to change a field, a contact, or a document and open to close to tell you, hey, this email is ready to go out now because you changed this field to X. Now we need to send this email, this text, add this template, add these fields, do this, do that. So there's a lot of automation that can happen there. Could you please go over email templates, mail merge, and smart blocks? So we don't have necessarily mail merge. We have merge fields. So I think that's probably what you're talking about. But we'll go over here. Okay, so let me come down to try to find one that actually has some stuff in it here. Okay, this is good. So here's an email template. Obviously you have the ability to put merge fields in here like contract date. So the contract was accepted by all parties on, and you come over here and hit this little button and you can come and find this field. You can say, I need contract date in there. And just click on it, it's going to copy it, and then you come over to your email and you just paste it in there. So that's how that got put in there. And you can do that. So just make sure that these, when you go to check your emails before they go out, if it says the contract is accepted by all parties on and there's a missing, it's going to have a little red block, and I'll show you that in a second, but there's going to be a little red block that says, hey, contract date's missing and you forgot to put it in. So just make sure that you're putting in things that you will have at the time that this email goes out. So I'm going to come back to that because I don't want to switch screens right now. Let's show you a smart block really quick, and then we'll jump back and do that as well. So mail merge, smart blocks, and email. Okay. So email templates, yeah, obviously, I think I've went over this a lot, but not to beat a dead horse, but the 2 is like the buyer, right? And it could be 99 buyers. So there could be anyone that's listed as a buyer in the transaction is going to be sent this email. You can also put like CC on all buyer emails. A mom and a dad helping a son buy a house for the first time. They're not actually the buyer, but they want copied on all the communication. You can put them here, this label on them in the transaction, and now they're getting copied on every single email that goes out to that buyer as long as you have your template set up right. Now you may want to use a CC on all lender emails for lender processors and lender assistants and all these different people. You may want to use CC on all escrow emails for the 3 or 4 escrow assistants some escrow agents have. You may want to use this for attorneys, for paralegals. There's a million different things that you can use this for, but this is a really handy way to do it so that you're not having to remember who to copy on all the emails. Obviously, the body is being formulated depending on what's happening in the transaction. So in this case, I don't know what this smart block is, but we'll go ahead and click on it. Okay, so this is a humongous smart block with other smart blocks probably in it. There's definitely merge fields in here. No other smart blocks, but oh yeah, one right here. So you can have smart blocks inside of smart blocks inside of smart blocks. We don't recommend going past 2 or 3 just because if something breaks, it's a lot to test and go back and try to figure out what's happening. So 2 to 3 deeps, typically where I stop, if at all possible. And basically what this smart block is, it's a conditional piece of data. So all this data is going to come into the email, but only if this is true. So think about it this way. If there's a home warranty on the property, I want an extra paragraph to come in saying, hey, make sure you order your, make sure you get me the invoice for that so I can send it to the title company or whatever the case may be. So these conditional statements, but I don't want that paragraph to come in if no home warranties on the transaction. So that's where this condition comes in. If home warranty is equal to yes, go ahead and put this in. If home warranty is equal to no, it just won't put this in. And so you don't look like an idiot sending out an email about the home warranty when there's no home warranty on the property. So formulate your email with everything that must be in there, that goes out every single time, to no matter the situation, if this email goes out. Then you can put in your smart blocks for things like solar or septic or well, or things that just happen some of the time, home warranties, HOAs, financing, all those things. Then you can put paragraphs in for those additional things that you want your buyer or buyer agent to know, or whoever, if those things exist. So you'd have separate smart blocks with separate conditions on each one. So if HOA exists, we bring in a paragraph about HOA. if septic exists, we bring in a paragraph about septic. And so that's how they work. And then at the very bottom, what emails do you want to attach to this? This is where file roles come in. A lot of people don't use file roles. They are losing major efficiency by not using file roles. File roles can trigger things. They can also automatically attach these documents, but only if they exist, right? Like I have in here, let me see here, counteroffer number 3. That may only happen 5% of transactions if there's counteroffer number 3. If there's no counteroffer number 3, it's not even going to come in. But if there is a counteroffer number 3, it will automatically attach to this email. So it's going to save you a ton of time. You're going to automatically have everything attached. You're going to send to the right people, as long as you have it set up in your transaction as who the people are and what their roles are. And then it's going to build your email depending on the transaction so that you shouldn't have to edit emails in the future. Once you get these set up right, and you're going to have some trial and error, right? You're going to come in here and say, oh, I need this sentence because it's a short sale. Well, anytime that you're adding something to an email, it probably needs to be added as a smart block. So you want to go ahead and put, that new verbiage in there, put your condition of when you want it to come in, and now you never have to type that again. So if that happens in a year from now or 2 years from now, you're covered, it's already in there, and the smart blocks know when to bring in data and when not to bring in data. So hopefully that was enough of an overview. Lynn, there's a really good video on this. It is called Email Templates, Smart Blocks, Smart Groups, Merge Fields. I think that's in the title. It's an older video. It's from 2021. If you look in our help center, you'll find it. And it's about a 20-minute video that goes in depth on smart blocks and merge fields. And it goes a lot deeper than I just did. It'll show you how to do like contact loops and a lot of other stuff that would take probably too much time on this call. Okay. Can we also look at how to create one-sheets to send to agents and vendors if needed, and if these can be automated? Yeah, they can definitely be automated. So a couple different strategies on the one-sheets. Let me just get into one. Or let me add a new one. So we're going to add a new one, and we're going to say this is a buyer agent update, and let's just say that I represent the buyer, right? Or however you guys do this in your system to know, who you're representing at the time, where it's going, all that good stuff. Come up with some kind of good nomenclature here. You can also categorize these as well. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. And when I come in here to create it, it's going to ask me what fields do I want to include on this. So I may want to include the address, unit number, city, state, zip. And let's just say that I don't want to include any of this. They know all this stuff. Like I don't need to, maybe we put the contract status and the contract acceptance date or something, but maybe they don't want a bunch of fields on here. Maybe but you can put as many as you want. Don't forget, here's one thing that people tend to forget. There's other field groups here. So if you have other field groups and you want to add these for commission stuff or listing or agent intake, you can add those, but don't forget that these are all lined up right here. So and then you go to design. You can make these your colors. So if your colors are black and gold or blue and purple or whatever the heck they are, you can go ahead and put this stuff in here. You can also put a logo in there. Come to the layout. Now you can move field sections. You cannot move individual fields. Okay. So you can move field sections, but not individual fields. They're too interlocked in our back end of our program to allow you to do that at this point, maybe in the future. So you can move these around. So certain things appear at the top or the bottom or whatever. Now this is the cool part. So contacts, do I want some contact information to show? Maybe for let's pretend this isn't going to the buyer agent. Maybe it's going to the buyer and you want to remind them of the lender's information and the escrow officer's information. So you can say contact, you can choose by role, and I can say, I want to include the lender and I want to include the, let me see here. I don't think I have an escrow officer in here. So we'll just put the escrow officer assistant. I think I do. Oh, there's the escrow officer. My bad. Okay. So those two people are going to be in there. Do I want their personal information or their business information? So let's just say in this case, I just want their business information to show up, and then documents. I have a standalone one sheet just for documents. I like just sending out, what's missing or whatever. Go ahead and click on documents. Now, do you want to include the placeholder notes? That's up to you. Do you want to include the additional files in there, the files that are under the file? So I don't do that because mine are usually like outdated revisions. But if you're keeping like photos or something like that, you may want to include additional files. Document file links. Do you want to include those? Sure, I'll include those. Do you want to include any notes on there? You may not want to. Notes maybe are for your internal team and you don't want the clients to see that. Do you want to flag missing documents? This is a great one for flagging missing documents so they know these are missing. Flag fully executed documents. I don't do that. I just flag the missing ones. Include all custom labels. You can put your labels in there. Like if you have approved in SkySlope or whatever, or, you know, whatever those labels are, you can definitely include those if you want. And then you can put the definition. So they're not going to know what approved in .loop, AIDP. They have no clue what that means, or DL. So by putting the labels on there, now you're giving them like a legend so that they know exactly what those buttons are and what it means and what that document entails. So I like documents a lot. And like I said, I'll not include fields and contacts and just include the documents. Just to get like maybe this goes out on, I don't know, let's just say Wednesday or Thursday. That way I give them time to get me the documents before the weekend. And then maybe I have another one sheet that's going out to, you know, a full one sheet with a ton of fields and all kinds of stuff. And maybe that goes out every Monday at 8 a.m. or something like that. Property notes, pin tasks, completed tasks, scheduled tasks, unscheduled tasks. You have a lot of options in here and what you want to include on this one sheet. Come down to email. Now you can put a template email in here if you want that has like a bunch of smart blocks and merge fields that maybe, you know, hey, here's your weekly update. The date today is blah, 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 whatever. You can, as long as you have a field for it, you can put merge field in or a smart block and you can have this email look kind of custom every week. You can look down here and see if you want to embed the email message inside the one sheet, use default property signature, you know, all these different little things. This is where we get kind of custom here. So here are the recipients. I want to send this to the buyer and let's say the buyer transaction coordinator, not the buyer transaction. Let's say the buyer agent, buyer co-agent, buyer agent. So now these people are going to get this and maybe I want to go to the buyer, but CC here and CC here, BCC or whatever. That way your buyer agent and buyer co-agent know what the buyer's getting every week. So if they call them with questions, they got it taken care of. And then this is the part, depending on what plan you're on, you can send 1 or 3 or unlimited. So I want to send this every Monday at 7 a.m. And I want to send it every Friday at 7 a.m. And so now you can see, you can send that on Monday and Friday. Or you could do, and I want to send it again at Friday at 10. This wouldn't make sense, obviously, but now you're sending it multiple times. So hopefully that was enough of an in-depth one sheets. These are pretty powerful. Like I said, I like to split them up and send a documents one. A lot of times they won't look at the PDF, certain people. So just make sure that information is, you know, make sure you're at least explaining the one sheets and that you do need to click on the PDF, or sometimes people just won't do it. You know, just some people just don't read their email or don't click on things. They look at it for 2 seconds and delete it.
Can I add in a few pieces to that too, real quick?
Yes.
One thing while we're on the schedule page, we've gotten this feedback and implementation of, what if I don't put a schedule here? When you apply a one sheet to your property, you can actually set a different schedule on the property itself. Now, like Andrew was saying, this is a different send versus an email template. One sheets are sent out automatically. So if you put in this schedule here every Monday, every Friday, when you apply this one sheet to a property, it's going to start sending those out on the schedule that you have set. So do keep that in mind. If you hard code that schedule in the back end, it will affect any properties you apply this one sheet to. You can manually schedule your one sheets when you apply it to the property if you want that custom control.
And one other thing just to mention here that kind of ties in is you can have multiple of these, right? So this one's going to the buyer agent and buyer. You can have another one going to the escrow agent with a totally different schedule. You can have another one going to the lender with a totally different schedule. Depending on your plan and how many you have in your plan, you can put 3 of these on your property. You can have unlimited on your property. So just make sure you remember that you don't have to jam everything into one and make it a one size fits all.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing, this is scheduled to go out at 7 a.m. Now, depending on how many people we have this sent to. So let's just say that we have, let's just say there's 5,000 users of open to close, and let's just pretend that all of them are sending out a one sheet. What the system does is it batches them. So the first one in, first one out, right? So if they set this, they were the first person to create a one sheet, they're at the top of the list, it's going to go out at 7 a.m. Now, it processes fairly quickly through these segments of one sheets, but it may go out at 7:20. It may go out at 7:30 if there's 5,000 people sending one sheets at a time. We can only send so many emails at a time from our system. If they're all automated, we send them in batches of like, I don't know, maybe Matthew knows, I think like 50 or 100
We
or
just
something.
bumped it.
Yeah,
Actually, so great news here, just before you get too far into that.
Okay.
I was working with Shane directly on some of those delays that we were seeing, and it's exactly what you're describing. We were sending them out in batches, but there were such high volume times. I mean, it was really starting to create much larger gaps of time than we were wanting. So we have pretty much times 10 the number of servers that are handling those batches. So rather than having one batch go and then 15 minutes later another one, we literally have 10 different batches happening at once, and it's significantly decreased any sort of delays. So I haven't seen any more delays ever since that happened. It's all been pretty much instantaneous. So
as we keep growing, you may get a 7:15 instead of a 7, but that hopefully that will alleviate some of those issues that we were having with so many people sending them out on one server, and they were getting backed up 45 minutes or an hour or 2 hours even. So
one last thing while we're on one sheet, I couldn't quite tell if we went over it, but a lot of the details you were pointing out on layout of like notes, tasks, what I can share, don't forget you have your EX button. Yes. So if you want to have a task, a note, something on your property that you don't want to have shared in that one sheet, just make sure the EX button is selected, and that will not show up in one sheets or the portal views. So
what Jana's talking about is this right here. If you have your task showing, but you don't want this task showing, you can just make that a charcoal color instead of that light gray color, and this one will not be on your one sheet. Now, be careful. Well, I shouldn't say be careful. Be aware that you can do this on your templates. This is the place you should be doing these. You should set up your templates with the EX already checked so that you're not having to come in here at the beginning of the transaction and check all your EXs again. So make sure you're doing these in your templates. But if you have one, like let's say you're sharing your notes, but you want to put in a private note, then you can always add a manual EX next to it, or documents too. You never know. You might get some document that you just don't want to share to the client on their thing. You can come in here and EX that document. And that just means exclude. If you hover over it, it tells you what it means. All right.
Another part to that is also going to be in the settings underneath notes, underneath your global settings. You can also set whether or not you want new notes to be excluded every time, or you don't want them to be excluded every single time. That's the only other thing with exclusions.
Yeah, that's good. Good to point out. So
note settings. I found it underneath there, I think. Yeah,
here you go. So do not exclude. I always have mine excluded just because I don't want someone accidentally typing in something negative about somebody, and then like all of a sudden it shows up in their portal and follow up us, or it shows up in their portal on open to close. So be discretionary when you're doing this, and make sure your team knows that you did this, and just make sure this is very visible to your team that, hey, we are not excluding automatically these things. So, okay. Is there a way to change multiple task dates at once? I don't believe so. So let me maybe in here, but here, let me go to the task first.
So I also took a look at your account, Diana, and based off of what I can see with your tasks right now in your task templates, you have a lot of tasks that are unscheduled or they do not have a due date on them. And then you have some tasks that are based off of contract acceptance. Typically, the best way or the fastest way to sort of update those dates is exactly what Andrew's showing, where you can select those particular tasks. You can update them en masse like that. It would be technically updating them to the same date. So if you needed to do it where you wanted to push a couple to a couple different dates, you can always like manually slide them over in the task pipeline, or exactly where Andrew's saying, select that button. You can say set date. The other option that I would kind of look into is possibly using some of the other dates that you might be tracking in your account. So like, for example, if you ever needed to extend the due diligence period, it's not 10 days, it's now 15. Technically, you could use it where if you say that these particular tasks are due 3 days before due diligence end period ends, If you update that due diligence end period from, the 10 days to 15 days, and it updates it 5 days out, it should update those tasks that are correlated with it as well. Contract acceptance, if you base it off of that, the contract acceptance date really isn't going to change. So all of those are going to kind of stay the same. There's no way to en masse update those dates.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
So let's see, is there a way to change? Okay, yeah. So just select this. Make sure you don't select this. Don't select complete task accidentally. I know a lot of people do that. This button right here is so you get your options. And then you have a couple options in here. You have task roles, task tags, you have the set date, you have the color. Yeah, so anyway, this stuff pops up and you can look through those. Okay, well, we are out of questions a little early today. Let me show you over in, let me show you this real quick.
I also went ahead and I grabbed some articles that I think would be helpful. Same with that Loom video or that video that Andrew had mentioned. And I commented back on some of your guys' questions. So if I'm not sure, I think that you guys can access this sort of, when your question's been answered, if you click on QA and you go to answered, you should be able to see my notes. So feel free to grab those links as well to those articles, just in case you need it like immediately and you can't wait for this recording to come back up to review it later.
Cool. So here is under the profile page, you got your profile, you got your organization, plan and billing. Here's the support center. I click that, it's going to open it up. And Hannah said she sent this out, but I'm just going to type it in. Like if you type in merge, everything with merge fields is going to come up. So I can find, here's that one I was talking about, email templates, merge fields, and smart blocks, November 2021. Click on that. You got your video here. Just to remind people, if you click on this to play it,
so let's go ahead.
You are not happy with the size here, you can open it in YouTube. You can play it on full screen. You can play it on a TV. The other thing is if I'm talking too slow and you just want to get to a point, we do have a lot of these divided up so you can see like where I need to go with these, but you also have the ability to speed these up. I don't know if you know this is here, but you can put it at 1.5 times speed. And then once I get to the point where you're really interested, you could actually slow it down to 0.5 speed if you wanted to. So just be aware that all of that is there. Okay, we got some more questions. My dates are all whacked because we are closing faster than a month. Sure. So can you follow up and tell me, is it scheduled for less than a month or is it just you're closing before the scheduled closing date? Because it's two different strategies here. The first one would be if you're closing less than 30 days, I would have a separate template for less than 30-day closings. And it's not going to be perfect, because your dates, 10 days, typically you're doing stuff 10 days before closing. If it's a 9-day closing, it looks like it was past due, but in actuality, you do have to move a little quicker. So that's fine. What we do is I think we have a less than, don't quote me on this, but I think I have a less than, let's see here. Like I have a task scheduled for 3 weeks prior to closing, but we're closing in 2 weeks. Yeah, sure. So that's what I'm going to go over right now. And that is to set up a different template. So my template, what I do is I say less than 30-day closing, less than 20-day closing, less than 10-day closing, because I do investments and sometimes we close in like 3 or 4 days. So what you have to do is set up separate templates for those so that you have adjusted dates. Now, the other theory that people say is just, hey, I still have to do these. So they're all just stacked up and I just do them. I still like to change them because I know that I'm not going to do 82 tasks in one day. So I'm going to set them. So if it's a 15-day close, I'm going to take all the stuff that needs done urgently the first day. And then I kind of group those together in a separate template. So if you don't want to go to that, then you got to deal with the dates, but I would recommend just copying what you currently have and then just streamlining the due however many days before. Instead of 15 days before, maybe it's okay if it's 5 days before on a 15-day closing. So that's the way I would do it.
And I'm going to add in just an observation I personally have seen in implementation. When looking at task lists, generally we recommend having your main under contract tasks in one template. Those are the tasks you do every time. Those often are built around your contract acceptance date and your contract closing date. Your other task templates for finance tasks, appraisal tasks, inspection tasks, all of that are separate, so we can pull them in conditionally. And sometimes we're still seeing those tasks built around contract acceptance and contract closing versus the deadline that they relate to. So take a look at some of the fields that you're using in your date option. If it relates to a deadline and you associate that field correctly, if it's earnest money, 15-day close, and your earnest money deadline's moved up, we know that we have urgency there because it's based on the deadline itself versus contract or closing. So not sure if that fully makes sense, but I would just take a look at the date option a little bit more too, to see if you can expand on that.
Yeah, definitely. I think another thing as well, just to add on to it, is that I noticed you weren't using date templates yet. Totally understand if your closings are closing so quickly, but you can always create multiple date templates as well. You can create one for your traditional transactions, for the ones that are going to close within 30 days, 15 days, and 10 days. And then you can have it built based off of the logic. You can say, oh, I indicated that this was a 15-day close. So pull in the dates like this, and then it'll update those tasks. On top of that, just keep in mind that you can always clone your task templates as well. If you needed to create those other, the 10, 15, 30-day task templates from the ones that you currently have.
Yeah, the other thing I would say, Jana reminded me of something, now it just left my head. Well,
Sorry.
anyway, no, that's fine. I totally spaced it. I just had it. So anyway, yeah, there's some good strategies for you. I mean, I would say that definitely look into one day before it. So here's where you got to be careful. So it's great to have one day before inspection, because if the inspection's moved up, then your deadline's moved up for that task. Just be careful that the task you're doing always pertains to the date that you're basing it off of. What I'm saying is, you don't want to have no appraisal on, like, what if they waive the appraisal and they don't have an appraisal, and then you have 4 tasks set for 2 days before appraisal that had nothing to do with the appraisal? Well, those tasks are just going to have no date on them, so just be careful and think through those. If you are using something other than dates that are going to be in every single transaction, like the acceptance date and closing date, just make sure that you have a safeguard for if there is no appraisal and you have something 2 days before the appraisal. Make sure that you're aware of that so that you don't miss something accidentally because now it doesn't have a date on it. Let's see here. Calendar. If dates are pushed to the Google Calendar, I make an edit in Google Calendar. Will everyone see the update? Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, but no, we don't go backwards like that, right?
Well, it's a little tricky. So it is a one-way push, right? So when we push that over to the Google Calendar, it's kind of like when you go to your Google Calendar and you're creating an event, you send out, somebody plug in somebody's email, you send out an invite. If you're making changes there, it should update the invite that is already existing, but it does not come backwards into open and close to update our side with that date, whatever changes you might make. So it should update your invitees, but not open to close.
Yeah, exactly. Because we don't want something changing dates and fields and things like that in open to close without your approval, because that sets off automation. You may not be on the automation yet, but some people are. And if we have things set to, like our follow-up bus integration, if an agent changes something over there, it's not going to backfill into open to close, because we don't want an agent or someone else having control over our fields that we know TCs are more detail oriented than agents. Sorry if there's any agents on here, but that's just the facts. And we don't want agents changing our stuff. And so we're really careful about what updates the system. So typically it's a one-way push from open to close other places. Most of the time we're not letting things change back. Now in the future, we do have some things that will work that way, but there will be a TC approval before it actually updates. It'll say, hey, Matthew changed this field. Are you okay with this? And if you hit okay, then it will change the field. So, so that's the reason why we do that way. Okay. Looks like everything got answered. So we are out of questions. We're at 11:34. If anyone else has questions, we'll wait around since it's pretty early. Oh, here we go. What are best practices for calendar invites? Do most TCs invite their agent, buyer, seller, title, lender, all, none? I'll let the implementation team take this, but like when I was on calls with people a lot, it was not title, not lender. It was more agent, buyer, or seller, depending on who you're representing. So if it's the buyer, seller, and then the agent for those people, those were typically, and then maybe some teammates, maybe someone on their transaction team, maybe the team leader, maybe I'm trying to think of who else. No, those were about the people that I saw. You guys, have you seen anything different?
Oh, my audio cut out.
You gotcha.
6:30. Okay, sorry. One thing we are seeing with that, and just what I would personally do as a TC myself, is any deadlines I would probably share to my agent's calendar. And then appointments like the inspection appointment, closing appointment, final walkthrough, I may share with my clients that would be attending that particular appointment. So it really depends, like Andrew's saying, the use case, but oftentimes agents, the team members you're working with, and then your clients are what we're seeing.
Yep, cool. Can you add a time to an intake form? We want to have a place for an agent to input the time and date of their listing appointment. We have the date figured out. We can't figure out. Yeah, times went away. We had times at the very beginning. Something broke and we couldn't get it fixed. So it is on the roadmap of things that we want to add in the future and get that fixed. But for right now, it's just dates. They're going to have to either put the times in the notes for you. So you should in your intake forms have a catch-all, or maybe you put like a little open text field there for the time. You can put a text field and say time of inspection, and then they can actually just fill it in. Now that's something that you'll have to add to that that date if you want it inside the date, but you know, that's the workaround for it right now.
One thing we do see a lot of, especially for topics like inspections, is creating a text area field that you can have on your intake form for additional inspection notes, because maybe they do have like a preference or something they need to note. Maybe there's a sewer line inspection. It's going to happen. Those types of details can feed in, but if I recall correctly, you may be able to enter the time when you're approving the intake form. So you may be able to have that be an internally required field.
Yes,
Matthew, Hannah, can you?
I
I'm wrong on that.
think you might be right. We could try it. So
For the time
Oh.
specifically?
the other thing I wanted to bring up is Jenna, oh geez, everything's leaving my head now, right after you say it. Date and time. Let's see.
Approval intake.
Shoot. Oh, it'll come to me. Let's go to one of our transactions here. Let's go to our dashboard. We'll find one that hasn't been approved yet. We'll see if we can put in a. Okay, so where are we at here? Intake submission forms. Okay, so I'm on this. Let's just say, okay. Count. Yeah, that's fine. Say business days and skip federal holidays or count federal holidays. Okay. All right, cool. Close. And then, it doesn't come up in the list of fields, but you can go in here if you had a date. Let me add a date here. So contract acceptance date. That should be fine. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Close. Okay, so contract. Shoot. Are these all dates? Yeah.
Don't forget to select the remove. Oh, okay, good. It showed up anyways. Okay, good.
Okay.
It said
cool.
remove section. I was a little worried it wasn't going to show up.
Yeah, so you can go in before it gets approved and put them in there. But so, I know what I was going to say. Me personally, I have a field box, a text box after every field section. Personal preference. Some people don't want it eating up space on their thing. I find it super helpful. My agents, after every section that they fill out on their intake form, it says, do you have any more information for the TC about, and then property details. Do you have any more information about transaction dates? And that gives them a little free form, just jog their memory like, oh crap, yeah, I got to tell them about the dog that's like ferocious in the backyard or whatever the case may be. Or, hey, there's a leaking pipe that there's a bucket under and please don't remove that bucket or whatever, all these things come up during a transaction. So I like the additional text box at the bottom of each section. And then I put that text box on my intake forms too. But some people don't like it taking up space. So I get that as well. All right, we are out of questions.
So I just want to jump back a little bit on talking about the dates and times, adding times in there. If you actually want to set one of those dates with the time, just so you can see what it looks like, it'll give you the ability to do so on the property, but not on the intake form. It'll just be the dates on the intake form. But when you're here at this point, look at the details, you can plug in that start time, end time. Now, the reason I want to bring that up is because if you don't set a time, a start time, end time, when you're maybe doing the Google Calendar invites like we're talking about earlier, that becomes a quote unquote all day event because you haven't plugged in a time. So it just says, okay, there's an event this day, but you never set a time. So it just becomes an all day event. And so sometimes that can be a little confusing for maybe like the agents or something like what time, what's happening here with this event? It's today, but at what point? So just kind of calling attention to start end time, because I see a lot of times people may not be leveraging that. And if you are pushing things to a calendar, just I think best practice, you should probably be plugging in that time if applicable.
Yeah, definitely. And you can also always make this contingent later, like this box is here for a reason. Like if you want to make this, you know, some like one day after something, you can always choose to do it after the fact as well. And then you put your API calendars in here. So if you have a calendar for like buyer critical dates, seller critical dates, you know, all these different things that you may have calendars for that are sub calendars of your main calendar, you can also choose to select those as well, as long as it's under this API connection for, you know, Andrew at abcrealty.com or whatever your email is.
I do believe that if you populate just a start time, it defaults to an hour as well. So you would need to put an end time if there was, you know, if it was an inspection, it was going to be longer than an hour.
Yep.
And sorry, one last thing. I wanted to close this loop. I did confirm if it's an internally required field, I can update the time through the approval process.
You can.
It essentially just opens that window when you click on the time there. It's a similar window, so you can enter the time right below the color coding. So same screen, it's just it was prompted through the approval process of the intake form instead of manually tracking it down.
Gotcha. I don't think we have any with, oh yeah, here, option end. There you go. So you put it on this one, click it open, set the times, but you'll still need that information from the agent, which a text field is probably going to be the way to go there. All right. Well, we'll hang out for another 5 or 10 minutes and we'll see, maybe 5 minutes, and see if there's any more questions. If there's no more questions, then we will go ahead and close it up. If there's no more questions, I appreciate everyone being here. We will be here same time, same place next week. And then the following week, I am gone and the team will take over. So. All right, last chance. Anyone that has anything that they're having trouble with, anything that you need a little bit of help or just an example of, or anything like that?
Me. I want to play client.
Okay.
This is just something we've had come up with support and just pick your brain a little bit. Maybe this will help out other people as well. The idea of auto uploading files, documents to the Google Drive. We've found some interesting scenarios where somebody might have all of their like a bunch of documents loaded maybe from the intake form, but you can't, like if you set Google Drive to auto upload your files, that happens moving forward. It doesn't retroactively go back and add files. You can mass add files, but I just want to pick your brain. What do you think is the best practice for trying to upload files to, or automatically upload files to Google Drive?
I would say do it right from as soon as you start that transaction. There's a list, right? So there's probably a task list that you need to bring in for your TC, or you can put those on when you're approving the file. You can put those extra little things that you need the TC to do beforehand. I can't remember what they're called.
Internal instructions.
Yes, thank you.
Gotcha.
Internal instructions. And those internal instructions could be like, go connect.loop and pull in the documents for the agent, because some teams don't want their agents to have to download out a .loop, put it in an email or put it in the intake form, send it to, you know, the TC. Like they're already in there. So a lot of teams will just have a task like go over here, go to .loop, bring in those documents, and now the agent has one less step to do. The other things that you could do, like Matthew's saying, is that would be one of my first tasks that I did, is send to Google Drive. And then if you already have things in here before you set that, you're going to have to check those boxes, and you're going to have to say options, and you're going to have to send them to Google Drive here. Yeah, and then choose the folder. But everything after that should be automatic. But that should be one of your first steps. Your first step should be connecting .loop or SkySlope or whatever there, connecting Google Drive, connecting Follow Up Boss, any of the integration partners you're going to want to set up right from the beginning so that you don't lose any of that data from the beginning, because it's not going to retroactively, like Matthew was saying, send that over. So that's the best we can do on that one.
Yeah. And if you do happen to, set up that auto upload later in the process, and you already got 10, 15 documents or something, what I would say is important, because I noticed you had selected it, which that's really cool and really important there, is if you select all those documents that you need to push over to Google Drive still, that it's already retroactive. If you select them, it'll give you that option to push them to a folder. You do have to select the files. This caused a little bit of confusion, because if you just click on Google Drive and try and say push all these files over, it won't do that. You have to actually select those files, and then you have the option to manually push them all over to Google Drive.
Yep. Cool.
And I'm just going to expand one layer on why would I want to do that. It's really up to you and how you organize your files. One thing that we do recommend is just have a backup of those files in one place. But if you don't need to push all your documents over, that is why you have that control of either all or manual. So it's really preference too on your team's strategy with document storage.
Adding another layer on top of that, you can select all those documents, merge it into one particular document. It's going to be a long one, right? It could be 68 pages, but sometimes having them all into one package can be easier as well. If you're, let's say, downloading it to one folder, that's just all of my closed transactions. Here they are with that one document that I have to worry about that has all of the PDF files merged.
I like having a backup of my stuff somewhere else, just in case. You never know. We're 99.9% uptime, but you just never know. It's that 10 minutes that you need it, that we go down and you need that document for something important. I really like to have a backup. So having a API sync of all my fields coming out into a Google Sheet, and having my documents being backed up in Google Drive, and having my contacts, somewhere else as well. I mean, I'm a big proponent of having a secondary place, because you just never know what's going to happen. So maybe OpenAI takes down the world soon, and we all turn into robots, and you need some data. So just be ready, have a backup. Okay, well, we are good. We're at almost 12:50, so I think we're pretty good to shut this baby down today. We will see you next week. Thanks for being here. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to support. And everyone knows where to find support. That is on the blue or purple widget down at the bottom right-hand corner. And here is your support center, where you're going to find all the knowledge base as well. So have a good week, guys. Bye.